Sri Arvind V. Iyer's paper, Prāṇa in the Sūtra literature of Kāvyakaṇṭha Gaṇapati Muni, a reading in the context of the Tantrasāra.
Om Tat Sat. Omkara Vadanam Vandyam Kavinam Adimam Kavim Vande Ganapatim Devam Naraveshadharam Gurum. Now that is a simultaneous tribute to the Devata Ganapati and also a giant of a scholar, poet, philosopher whose name was also Ganapati, Kāvyakaṇṭha Gaṇapati Muni, who flourished at the turn of the 20th century. He is called Muni thanks to his association with Bhagavan Ramana Maharishi of Tiruvannamalai, and he was also a contemporary of Sri Aurobindo. Kāvyakaṇṭha is a title graced by him, we would say, earned by him for his immense poetic prowess. This presentation, though, is not about his poetic works, but about his Sutra texts. There are 63 Sutra texts composed by Kāvyakaṇṭha Gaṇapati Muni on a variety of topics. Just to step back a bit, a Sutra text like the Patanjali Yoga Sutra, which Professor has written a commentary on, the Shiva Sutras revealed to Vasugupta, all of them, they are not poetic works, immensely terse, aphoristic works. And these texts, the works of Gaṇapati Muni, the first of them is called the Mahavidya Sutra, and it is on the Dasha Mahavidyas. He has written on the something called the Raja Yoga Sara Sutra and so on. They run into several volumes, and to the topic for today, to capture the life breadth of this corpus of Sutra literature, as it were, the topic I've chosen is Prāṇa. Prāṇa, there's no need to tell this audience how fundamental it is to any darshana, be it yoga, Vedanta, Tantra. So the style of Gaṇapati Muni is expository and discursive, even if he operates in a sutra format. So there is a work called the Vishwamimamsa, which is literally inquiry into the universe. And he draws freely upon multiple disciplines. Even so, there is a tantric influence which can be discerned in them in the treatment of Prāṇa. And the treatment of Prāṇa has both metaphysical and practical aspects. It's about not just about what is Prāṇa, but also so what for a practitioner. So since Gaṇapati Muni's style is not exclusively tantric, to see whether there is a tantric basis with respect to a more mainstream tantric source, I've tried to read it in the context of the Tantrasāra of Mahamaheshwara Abhinavaguptapada, where too Prāṇa is fundamental. I'll briefly mention some future work, not further in the presentation. The multiple volumes of Sutra texts, they have been printed, they are available in print, but without translations or commentaries. So such a study is great to revisit once those become available as well. Recently, Indica had a symposium on how to negotiate Sutra literature. We saw a verse in the beginning of the presentation. That's the only verse we'll see. And there are no mantras in this presentation. It's all within the restrictions of what can be revealed. And similarly, Prāṇa is presented here as a proof of concept. Similar studies can be done for Shabda, Mantra, Chit, and so on. What is Prāṇa? We can start with an answer like breath, but that is not all, of course. Rather than saying Prāṇa is something like breath, we may say Prāṇa is someone for whom breath is a vibhuti, or a glorious, miraculous power. So what is prana and who is prana are both questions that can be asked profoundly. Professor Haramohan Mishra spoke about asking profound questions to get profound answers. And each of these questions can give us profound answers. They can be asked in an adhyatmika way. So in the Yoga Sutras and also the broader yoga tradition, a lot is said about the intimate connection of prana and the chitta. Chale vate chalam chittam is a famous Hatha Yoga aphorism. The Prashnopanishad in Vedanta associates prana very intimately with the Atman itself. But apart from keywords like chit and Atman, etc., there is a more tantric lens we can give on this, with prana being associated with Kali, Rudra, prana as a Shakti. That will be the core of this presentation. Let's go to the first sutra which Gaṇapati Muni gives. It says, Prāṇo Vishwasyadihi. Prana is the origin of the universe. Now, for those familiar with the Brahma Sutra, this might remind someone of Janmadyasya Yataha, where the world comes from. He immediately follows up with Abhautikaha. Now, if it's Abhautika, if it's non-physical, then what is the breath that we feel? Again, the answer is that there are Bhautika Vibhutis, or glorious manifestations abounding, but prana is Abhautika Vishwasyadi. The first two are what in the tradition are called Tatastha Lakshanas, which are not about the thing in itself, but about what it relates with, how prana relates to the world. And it's also about what it is not, Vyatireka, as we might say. And there is, Gaṇapati Muni doesn't disappoint us, he gives us a Swarupa Lakshana as well, which can be seen in the third sutra. Let's just look at the last two words. Chit prana. Chit as in consciousness, nothing but prana. What sort of chit? Anadir ananta vibhu svanubhutyaika rasa chit. Without beginning, without end, all pervading, that which has for its sole essence the experience of self. This is beyond distinctions of gender. We heard Professor Ramaratnam's talk in the morning of how masculine and feminine, they have their place as labels, but transcendentally, no. There is a sutra Gaṇapati Muni gives us, Vaibhutika Shariranam, Ubhabhyam Lingabhyam cha Vyapadesho Apratisiddha. When we are talking about a Vaibhutika Sharira, a glorious manifestation, supernatural, not a Sharira like this one. When we speak of a glorious manifestation like that, referring to by any gender is not forbidden, apratisiddha. So similarly, applying that principle to prana, he says, Sadbrahma Paradevata Parashaktiriti tas anyani mukhyani namani. He who is called prana, also in the neuter gender is referred to as Sat Brahman, in the feminine gender as Paradevata, Parashakti. Prana, however, is associated by Gaṇapati Muni explicitly with certain devatas as well. So in the Tantrasāra Sutra, he says, Evam prano dyau kalo suryascheti chatusro vibhutaya indrasya. So we spoke of what a vibhuti is. He says Indra, the Vedic Indra, he has four vibhutis, the first of which is prana, the others of which are space, time, and Surya, the sun itself. Doesn't stop there. Rudro Mahan Prana, the greatest of pranas, is equated to Rudra himself. But most significantly, which will be the core of the talk, he speaks of Kali in the Mahavidya Sutra, Kali Patla. Asmasu pravahantau sa shaktihi shrestha prana uchyate. That Shakti, which is operative within us, she is the prana. That needs some unpacking, which we'll see with some context. This is the core of the presentation, which we'll be unpacking. The last sutra you see is what I just said, Asmasu Pravahantau Sa Shakti Shrestha Prana Uchite. But Gaṇapati Muni gives us context. He begins, Kala eva strilingakhya Kali Uchite. Kala, let's just say time, capital T right now. whom we can refer to in the feminine gender as well, invoking the previous principle, is called Kali. Pachakatvam kalasya swarupam. What is the nature of this time? It is pachakatvam. Literally the nature of cooking, but it's about transformation, movement, anything that changes in the cosmos. That is the nature of this Kala and Kali. Mahakalasya nityatandavasya vibhutatah kalihi nati richyate. Mahakala, this time, is vibhu, is all-pervasive. What of his is all-pervasive? Nitya Tandava, the eternal dance. We just saw a wonderful dance performance. From the glory of this eternal dance, Kali is no different. There's a very favorite phrase of Gaṇapati Muni, Nati Richyate, does not differ in extent from, or does not differ from. Kriyaiva Tandava Muchyate, action, change in general, that is Tandava. Esha Samashti Shaktir, Bhutanam Avishya, Vyashti Shaktischa Bhavati. So this is a universal Shakti, but also present in the aggregate, present as much in the individual as well, present both in the Vibhu and in the Anu, which is what Gaṇapati Muni says here. And finally, he says, Asma, so she's present in the Anu, in the Vyashti as well, as what? Asmasu Prabhavantav Sa Shakti Shreshtha Prāṇa Uchyate. In the context of the Tantrasāra, on the left we see the sutras we just saw. Let us see what Mahamaheshwara Abhinavaguptapada has to say. Sarva asau vakshyamana adhva pranastha. Adhva, as we heard in one of the presentations by Rohit and Aritra, these are the paths to liberation. All of them are founded in prana. Sarva asau vakshyamana adhva pranastha kalyate. Tasya krama krama kalanaiva kalaha. Its unfoldment, its revelation, sequentially or not, that is called kala. Such a parameshwara eva antarbhati, such a parameshware eva antarbhati. This time abides in Parameshwara, the supreme deity. Already we see a similarity with Kala eva, Srilingakya, Pachakatvam eva, Nityatandava and so on. Tad bhasanam cha devasya Kali nama Shakti. Its shining forth is the Shakti named Kali. Bhedena tu tadabhasanam kramakramayo pranavritti. So in its diverse manifestation, it also presents in the movement of prana. So here we see Mahamaheshwara Abhinavaguptapada and Gaṇapati Muni speak in the same voice. Before I conclude, we'll see a little bit about prana from the Adhyatmika standpoint as well. I promise we'll return to Ma Kali and offer this at her feet. Gaṇapati Muni says, Atma mula swarupam chet pranat nati richyate. Here in one sutra, he puts in an argument or a yukti or a syllogism. Says, prano vishwasyadihi. We have seen the sutra. It is primordial. If Atma, the self, is also mula swarupa, it is also primordial, it can't be different from prana. Nati richyate. Again, his favorite construction. He speaks of prana and buddhi. Yatra chiti vedana matram sa prana. Where there is awareness only of the inner consciousness, what is called prana, in the second sutra we see, yatra vedya vivekah sa buddhi. The same prana, when there is awareness of anything external, anything different, that is called buddhi. Now, the entire yoga darshana is based on turning the awareness back into the inner consciousness. Swarupa pratishtha chiti shakti riti, Bhagavan Patanjali says at the very end. When there is no more awareness, no more external objects as it were, to claim the awareness and make prana manifest as buddhi. So we heard of buddhi nasha in Abhijit's presentation. And here it is in a subtle way as well, that we are looking for prana being established in Chitti Vedana rather than Vedya Viveka. Anadir Ananta Vibhuhu Svanubhutyeka Rasa Chit Prana, this is the Swarupa Lakshana we saw earlier. This prana expands or gets to its greatest extent through tapas. Tapasa sa vikasam prapta, Gaṇapati Muni continues. And what is this tapas? Sahaja swanubhuti nishtha janyat paka visheshat tapo nati richyate. Tapas is no different from, again it's his favorite nati richyate phrase, not different from what? It is not different from a kind of transformation which abides consistently in the natural experience of self. In a way, he reiterates what he said in the definition, Anadirānanta Vibhu Swanubhutyaika Rasa Chit. He continues, we saw the Adhyatmika aspects, the Adidevika aspects. He speaks of how Prāṇa with the Shakti of Gati or motion is called Vayu. And this Vayu, the Upasana of this Vayu is done by observing the movement of the breath in and out. The same Prāṇa with the Shakti called Tejas, effulgence, is called Indra. And the Upasana of this Indra is done by observing the subtle inner heat in the nadis during sadhana. And again, the same Prāṇa with the Shakti called Swara, let's just translate it as sound, capital S now, is called Rudra. And the subtle Pranava within is to be contemplated on for Upasana of this Rudra. Finally, there is the Samvarga Vidya of the Chandogyopanishad in Vedanta. And across multiple sutra texts, Gaṇapati Muni speaks of how this Samvarga Vidya is Prāṇa Gatya Anvavekshanam. He gives multiple, the three sutras you see there. Uchvasa Nishvasa Pratyavekshana Bhyasaha Samvarga Vidya. Gatyagati Pratyavekshana Dvara Prāṇa Vayum Dhyayet Sa Samvarga Vidya. So this observing, contemplating on the movement of the breaths going in and out, that is Samvarga Vidya. Again, we are still in the realm of Vedanta, and Gaṇapati Muni doesn't stop there. In the Mahavidya Sutra, he says, Janata Shvasanam Tasya Shuddham Upasanam. What is the purest upasana of Kali? It is this contemplation of the breath moving, this Samvarga Vidya. Iyam Samvarga Vidyo Upanishadsu Giyate. With that, we are back at the feet of Mother Kali. So in conclusion, let's say that Prāṇa in the Sutra literature of Gaṇapati Muni is treated in a way that illuminates this continuity from disciplines to deities, and also the deeper continuity of Tantrasāra with yoga and Vedanta underneath these differences of terminology and emphasis. Om Tat Sat.
Arvindji, as always, has presented a very rigorous, well-referenced paper on Gaṇapati Muni's